enough. Oh, that cord might not be long enough. So we're live?
Almost. It's cooking something up. It's cooking something up. And it's reset. No, there we go. There we go. Okay.
Maybe I should shut my Wi-Fi off. Just use my data? And then you can use more of the... Or is it okay?
I think
because yesterday we had... If it gets glitchy, I'll just kill my Wi-Fi.
Let's see here. I got that. I got this. Oh my goodness, I'm going to have to go screen switching. Okay.
Are we live?
I think so. We are. We are. We're live here. Here we are.
Kurt and Ryan explain why it's okay to replay or relax if it's done. Okay.
Switch those.
Okay, so.
Oh, we got 2,000 people watching. 2,000.
Wow, right off the bat.
Wow. They must have been waiting outside.
I watched Mindy A. Bear video, live video the other day. She gets
who now?
Mindy, you know, the saxophonist.
Oh yeah,
she gets a pretty good following. You know what else I've been watching is Kelly Everett.
Really?
On Tuesdays.
Oh,
yeah, she does the thing. And you ever want to hear something cool? I really like her old style of singing. You know, like go listen to it's like the Hoot and Hollers. Listen to anyway.
Yeah.
If she watches this, she'll text me and say thanks for mentioning me. But if I don't get a text, I know she's not watching our live video, or at least the boring part in the beginning when we just try to figure out Zoom.
Yeah, yeah. Hopefully everybody can hear us.
Oh yeah, if you share screen, it'll get your messages. It'll get the people that see it will see your messages.
Oh, okay.
So if you got any messages you don't want the public to see.
Oh yeah.
So
Wednesday Wisdom.
Can you put up a picture? Pictures? You can do
that.
I
can.
Do we need to practice anything?
I can do. Now I've stopped my video. I can start my video again.
Okay.
So we get two of me.
Okay. All right. Let me stay away from your eye.
All right.
Are we going to keep our masks on for this video?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
We're giving something away.
I keep my mask on when I read emails. So, FYI, folks.
Plating. I think that this is a very. I think this is an interesting topic. I think people. I think we might get some hate mail for this.
Oh yes, this is definitely going to be
thrown at us.
Yeah.
No,
stop aiming your phone at me.
Sorry.
No, I'm just kidding. That happens when I travel overseas, especially in Asia. People are always like, take a little picture of you or walk up next to you, secretly take a picture. So it's weird though. I can't see Facebook. You know, I'm trying to see. How are you seeing Facebook?
Yeah, I got a little bit of.
You got like a split screen going on.
Yeah, I got this one here. Where I can see your screen. You know, this one here.
Oh yeah.
I can see that, and then now this is what they're seeing, just the two of us.
But why don't you? Oh, when we start, you're gonna put Zoom.
Yeah, I'm gonna pop up some pictures for them and show them some demonstration.
You're so good at this, right?
Yeah, I got a little bit of everything here.
Well, I mean, we were starting out early to make sure we got it.
Yeah, we got it. We
gotta get started.
2 minutes.
2 more minutes. Okay, 2 minutes. 2 minutes. 2 minutes. But actually, I said that 20 seconds ago.
So 22 minutes. 22 seconds. 22 seconds. 2 minutes and 20 seconds later.
Yeah, that's no. To them, it's 2 minutes. See, because they're behind us. Did you watch Back to the Future, Ryan?
To us, yeah.
Your homework
88
is to watch Back to the Future.
We go back into when this video never started.
We have a flux capacitor here if we need it.
We do.
Yeah. 2 more minutes. I'm going to test out my microphone.
I'm going to do some scans around here just to kind of show people that I truly am in the shop.
Oh, yeah? Whoa.
There we are. Oh, yeah, there's Kurt.
Chris Condon.
Are you
There's Matt.
Are you doing a video selfie and just turning in circles?
I am.
He's holding the camera like I think he's saying, I'm going to scan around the room, but actually he's got it.
I'm scanning around the room, but they also want to see me.
They want to see you.
They want, just make a decision for them.
Chris Condon's watching. Chris is doing some cool videos. Chris has got some cool videos. Chris should be editing videos for us. He called me, but I missed his call. Yep. Get him. Get over here, Chris. Don't tell people that he's our secret weapon.
They're set up.
I'm gonna hook up the microphone. 20 seconds ago. I just hooked up the microphone. I hope it works. Somebody tell me if it works.
All right, let's
Are we ready to go? Ready to do this?
Okay.
Is it time? Well, I'm going to start putting my camera
I think so.
in the correct position.
It's about that time.
See can you take a look at my camera holder before we start? Look at this.
I can. Yeah.
This is how a camera holder looks in a band instrument repair shop.
Right there.
Right there. Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty.
That's a tuba bell.
Yep.
I have an iPhone 65. Here we go.
It's the widescreen.
It's the widescreen.
It's got IMAX. Okay. Oh my goodness, people are commenting.
Whoa, comments. There's comments from 20 minutes ago.
There's a bit of a delay.
There's a delay, yeah. This is our first Zoom, folks.
Yes, bear with us. Relax, it's free.
Are we starting? I know. I think we can. We are social distancing here.
That's right.
But you know, we can't in the buffing room.
I clean out my mouth.
Ryan wears a mask.
Yeah. I clean out my mouth with alcohol.
Let's begin.
So, what are we going over again?
We are going to talk about plating and
prepping,
plating, how to do it right. So in the industry, there's a general idea, which is generally true, that if you replate a horn, it will never play the same, and the basic connotation is that it will never be as good. Right.
That is yes. That once you do any kind of refinishing to a horn, it completely ruins that.
And there may be some truth to that. I mean, we've plated a lot of horns, right? How many have we? I know, a lot.
I would say too many. No,
too many. We've done a lot of horns. We've plated a lot of horns, and who can say? I mean, we've certainly seen players before and after. Have you ever had a player that didn't like the horn when they picked up? They just said that fundamentally there was something missing, the soul of the horn. Have we ever had that? I don't think so. I don't think so.
I think just doing the refinishing just adds to it. Obviously, we're worried about the fundamental. It has to be a functioning saxophone.
Yeah,
it has to work.
Yeah, and it may change.
Right.
Just refinishing may change the horn, but we haven't noticed it to be negative. So let's talk about that a little bit. We got to kind of talk about the history of this and how it goes. And I think well, let me tell you how I started this thing. Back in the day, when I was in my garage alone, I was sending horns out to be replated. I had some success with a couple, but then I had this crazy nightmare thing happen. I can't tell you who it was, but I had some problems where I sent the horn to a plating shop and I did the prep, and my prep work wasn't good enough or it wasn't done in the right order, and the horns came back and it was really hard because the horns look like jewelry when they come back, and then but then you when you're working on them, something got moved, and you have these decisions to make, to either make it continue to look like jewelry and ease up a little on the mechanical side, or make the mechanical repair, but you kind of damage the finish. So what I did was I found a guy who would do the prep for me and then send it to the plater for me. That was when I was just in my garage, and I sent one horn and then another horn, then another horn, and the guy had the horns for like 6 months, and my customers were like, "Where are my horns? Where am I?" It was terrible. And finally, the guy, after like 6 months, I said, "I need these horns back, man," and because my customers were really not happy about it. It was a balanced action, a Mark VI, and I want to say a Con 6M or a Con 10M, and all tenors, so it was a 10M, and then the guy said, we had some problems with the plater. We had this and that. And we're going to send back the horns in the state that they're in. And he sent them back. And one had been like bright dipped. One had been buffed. And the other one had plating on it, but it was missing some of the guards. It was the balance action with those soldered guards with the 2 feet. You know those? Yeah. And so the guards were missing. And man, having someone else do that prep really wrecked me. And it took me a long time. Luckily, a friend of mine in the industry went through his boneyard and sent me parts, and I managed to get it done. But after that, I was like, no more plating ever.
Scarred for life.
Ever.
That experience.
So,
yeah.
So then, fast forward, I hired Ryan Walker. Everything changed.
Everything, yeah. Everything went down the tubes.
We had the ProShop, and we were doing it assembly line style, and Ryan was here for the beginning of that, and the assembly line style idea, what we said was, well, let's start looking at doing some plating. So we started looking at doing some plating and kind of moving it into the assembly line. When I say assembly line, you think overhaul. Like we were an assembly line overhaul shop. So what we were saying is, since the overhaul was done by different stations, right? Remember that, Ryan? Mm-hmm. And we said, well, we can kind of control what gets done where a little more easily. So we started running some horns through and having them plated, and we still had problems. Mm-hmm. I remember the first problem we had is the engraving, right? The thing that we thought is you should be able to do all the prep work, send it to the plater, get it back, and all you should do is assemble it with a screwdriver. You shouldn't have any other problems, anything that doesn't fit. It should just work great. That was our idea back in the day. And what really happened is we do all the prep work, we do all this beautiful work, we send it to the plater, it comes back, we can't even assemble the horn. It was an awful mess. It took like forever just to get it to be ready to assemble. And what we learned is that we needed to actually weave the plating into the overhaul, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. So for instance, we used to, right before we sent it off, we would engrave it. We would send it to Sherry mm-hmm. in Elkhart, and then Sherry would send it over to Anderson. And the problem with that ended up, we think we know the problem, but honestly we don't know, so I won't say, but the end result is what we got back, by really no fault of anybody but ours, was a horn that just didn't fit together. And so we had to, again, make those decisions about, well, this post got moved. If we move it, and the solder or these keys are bent, and we did our best to make the horns look beautiful, and we did, but we had to really work hard to make that happen. Mm-hmm. Eventually, we started to really change the order. What did we do, Ryan? We moved.
It was like I said, we were kind of interwoven that kind of plating procedure, certain bits here and there, rather than trying to do overhaul and then all the plating at once.
Yeah. So to solve that Sherry thing, I remember Josh was taking the bells off.
Yeah, we were taking them completely
in the
off,
beginning, right?
Just the bells. At first, we send the whole horn, just the body, and then we got to where we would take off the bells,
the bell off,
send that off. Yeah, and then eventually what happened is
let me say, we were sending it to the engraver.
Right.
So we're sending it to the engraver, and then we're getting it back from the engraver in the same area.
Exactly.
And then we're doing our work.
And then once the plating, then we're sending it back. There's a lot of variables of it being out of the shop where we didn't know what was happening to it. So
so many things. So some remember that silver was getting into the keys, right? Mm-hmm. And that's still a problem. But what we did was we made I don't have a key right here, but we made a thing that goes inside the key, and it has like a thing on each side. Remember that? And we tightened them down, and then it kind of sealed the keys so that
trying to prevent that silver from going in the heat tube and in the end, so we
wouldn't have to ream it out.
Yeah, ream it out, or we didn't have to do any facing after we've done our key fitting. Because at this point, all the key fitting's done. We sent it off, have it silver plated. We were expecting to come back and then just assemble it and be done.
Yeah, and
the screwdriver assembly.
We thought that would really work.
That would be
huge
failure.
Huge failure. Yeah, what happened was the plating chemicals got trapped inside the keys. Anderson called us and was like, "What is up with all these keys with the things on?" And we said, "Just run it. We want to see how it works."
Just do it.
What happened was the plating chemicals got in there, and then they couldn't escape.
Mm-hmm.
So really, what we should have done is had Anderson open it up and take them off, or made them snap offable. Maybe there's a rubber band in it that held it. We should have done something different. Another thing that we've had is during the plating, we've had the posts get too much, or the keys are getting built up and we can't fit the keys. Mm-hmm. We constantly found that we would send it to the plater, and what we got back wasn't what we expected. All these processes, sandblasting, buffing, I mean, everything that you do to the horn changes it. Packing and shipping is a big one, right?
That's the big thing that we can't control. We can control the other things like, the amount of buffing, the key fitting, the tone hole leveling. But once we pack it and ship it out, it's out of our hands.
Yeah, right.
So we were kind of wanted to limit the amount of time that we couldn't control those variables.
Yeah, and we eventually
got closer.
We got closer. We never got to the point where we get it back from. This is the dream world. You get it back from the plater, you open it up, and it's just the way you sent it, and you just assemble it with a screwdriver. Now, how long does it take when it comes back from the plater, Ryan, to kind of get the key work lined up again?
It's another 5-6 hours, maybe a little bit more, depending on the horn. But yeah, usually there's some, some key, bringing up, lapping, whether I have to lap it or ream it. Usually I'm lapping. It's not that bad. And then pasting the ends of the hinge tubes, making sure that those fit. And then after that, it's just kind of, it should be good to go.
Yeah.
It should be good to go. The dry fitting has already happened. We've already adjusted, the key orientation over the pad cup. So hopefully that hasn't changed.
Yeah. I think and so at this point now, we never, like Ryan said, he did spend time on it, but we never got to that point where we totally can assemble
it out of the box from the plater, put the materials on, assemble it, and it's good to go.
Yeah, we never got there, but we've come pretty close.
We've done close. Yeah.
So let's compare that. And so for instance, we level the tone holes after it comes back from the plater, and that saves us a lot. I found a guy once who would level the tone holes right before they plated it, and I thought that was really magic back in the day in my garage. That was that guy, and he had, but it actually didn't work out. The plating doesn't go on even. You have to level them anyway. So later we decided let's just level them after, but you don't get the silver on top of the tone hole. But this is what we live with, right? So let's compare that to the other way, and then we'll start talking about the process, and I'll hand it over to you, Ryan. But let's compare that to the traditional way. You sit down and you take a saxophone or any instrument you want played, and you make it perfect. Everything that needs to be parallel is parallel. Everything that needs to be perpendicular is perpendicular. Keys fit perfect. You spent the time. It's absolutely beautiful. You level the tone holes. You have it. Maybe you don't even have it re-engraved. You have that done as part of you'd have to have it. Then let's say you send it off to someone and they do the prep work, right? Now, they're going to take the key that you have made fit so perfect. They're going to hold it under a buffer and then sometime the key goes flying. I mean, it never happened to me.
Yeah, never happened to me.
It's never happened here, but I heard a story about it. And then you're going to take the bell and you're going to hard buff it, color buff it. That's the first buff, color buff. cut buff. And then the final buff is color buff, right? So you're going to cut buff it, which is an aggressive process. And then you're going to get down in here. Look at it. You're going to get down into this spot right here. Right. Yeah. Right before you're going to plate it, you're going to buff in here. And you got to buff like inside this spot.
It's like flossing.
You got to do it. And you got your razor buff on there, and you're snuck in there, and you're digging little holes, and you're buffing the heck out of this thing. And then you've taken that beautiful saxophone that you just made so beautiful, and you just wreck it, right? But now before it was a beautiful machine, and now it's a beautiful piece of jewelry that's all gold and beautiful. You send it to the plater, it comes back, or they send it, whoever did the prep work sends it to the plater, it gets plated. And when it comes back to you, remember, you sent it to the guy to do the prep work, you send it to the guy to do the prep work, and you send it off perfect. He or she buffs it, does all that work that has to be done, and then sends it to the plater, and then you get it back, and this thing is a totally different one. Keys are bent. I mean, anything. The body's bent, the tone holes are wrong. Every single thing that can be wrong is wrong. So
keys missing.
Yeah, I know, that's real. Yeah. That's very real. Okay, but this horn here, when it's done, is gonna play awesome. And this is an old Martin, and then I'll hand this off to Ryan. And this horn here, when it's done, it's plated. New gold in the bell. All the tone holes are going to be level. It's going to be absolutely straight. And in fact, it's going to have, I'm not going to claim to know what that little bit of metal does. I can tell you it makes it play more metally. But I don't know what that little bit of metal that you take off or put on with the silver is going to do for the sound. I'm not going to answer that question. But I can tell you that as far as most of this body goes, nothing's been removed. Just some silver put on it.
Right.
So if you wanted to, I guess you could chemically remove this beautiful silver.
Yeah.
If you had a moment of craziness, and then you would go back to that ugly horn and you could unreplay it, and it would actually be the same horn. Okay. So there is a way to do this work, send it to a plater, get it back, and have only a minimal nightmare.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Yes.
Just a few speed bumps.
Tell us how to do it, Ryan. Tell us.
Well, you just have to hire someone like me.
You just have to hire Ryan.
Oh, God. No, it is it's a process. And like I said, being able to insert it within that assembly line, different stages of the prep, made it a lot easier. So, we start with, our body work, we go dents out. Well, first,
let's look at that. Right?
Let's start so somebody sends us a horn like this. Okay, this is an old Worcester Aristocrat, probably from the mid-30s. We always say 1936. So this is probably what we would start with, is something like this. The first thing we would do is I would strip the lacquer, and I would do that chemically. I would not do it with a machine buffer where I would get in and buff it up to remove the lacquer. I would actually use a chemical stripper, which is, I put all my safety gear on, my mask, and my goggles and my gloves, and I strip the lacquer. And that'll give you a better idea when you start to do your dent work on things you may have missed with, covered up by lacquer. So that's the first step, is you have to kind of prep the body, go from something like this, which is kind of a model. It's a little re-lacquer. It's got some dings and some tarnish marks in there. And you have to kind of prep the body to be kind of a bare brass. This is one, as you can see, is kind of.
And that guy's ready to go to the plater.
This has, and I've got a couple areas here that I've shined up that are going to be the highlight areas. But this is one that we are.
So when you say prep the body, you've made the body. You've made it.
I have a picture here.
You've made the body straight. You've lined up the posts, right?
Well, now it's just kind of cosmetically. You're cleaning it up and getting the finish to where it's even, and then you can do all your dent work. You can do your modifications at that point.
Oh, hey, but to be clear, Ryan, on that horn that you've already buffed those little spots, you already set that horn has already been. It's straight.
Right.
That one's done.
Exactly.
You wouldn't do any of that buffing until the end.
Right, exactly.
Except for the color. Except for the color.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
The small areas, guard screws, key guards, strap ring, receiver. So it's a little area. So I'm not getting in there like Chris said, putting this up to the buffer and snagging the wheel.
Okay, but the order, I want to make sure that people understand because I think the process is like so key to getting a good job at the end. So you straighten the body. You're lining up the posts. You're making the keys fit, right? Yep. You stripped everything off.
Yeah, here. Let's see if I can.
Okay. Sorry, I don't mean to. Go ahead.
I mean show you guys. This is the horn before. So that's what it looked like before.
That's that one you got right there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. You can see this is kind of what it looks like now. The bell is right here.
So you've taken all the dents out.
Taking all the dents out, I've stripped the existing lacquer, kind of evened out the finish a little bit so I can see my dent work a little bit better.
Got your post straight.
Posts are straight.
Everything's good. Body fits together.
Got post for face. Key fitting is done. Dry fitting is done.
Okay.
So everything is, I do our normal process of using some dummy pads to kind of, make sure that the pad cups are, oriented the tone holes correctly. The timing is good.
But you didn't level the tone hole.
No, I didn't level the tone holes yet.
You took the springs out?
Yep. All the springs are out. All the pivot screws are out. All the rods are out. All the parts that can be removed are basically removed. Thumb hook is unscrewed. Nothing's completely unsoldered. And then it's a matter of kind of deciding what areas are going to be highlighted. Obviously on this one, the receiver. On the bell, it's going to be like the bell to body brace. This whole plate here is also going to be shiny. All of the guard feet, because the keyword is going to be smooth, but the body's going to have that media blasted look to it.
So what you're going for at the end, Ryan, is this look that we kind of people know that we do, right?
That's
so it's got the smooth,
the highlighted silver.
Got the silver here, and you can see the silver guard. The guard is smooth. We choose, right? What gets smooth. So the work so far is nothing outside of a normal. Well, I know that the work you're doing is not maybe a normal overhaul, but for anybody watching, the work is normal overhaul stuff, right? Nothing so far in what you're doing, because I see that you haven't engraved that.
Right.
This is all normal overhaul stuff.
Overhaul stuff here.
Except one thing, right? Do you remember what you did early on? You do it. We just talked about it. You cut off.
Right.
Talk about that, Ryan, because that's, I think, key.
Yep.
Tell us when you cut buff.
I cut buff right before I do key fitting.
Boom. That's
right before key fitting, because the cut buff is the more aggressive of the buffs.
That's right.
The color buff at the end is kind of that finishing. I think of it as the cut buff being prepping your surface.
What about your keys? Are you cut buffing the keys?
Cut buffing the keys. Yeah, that's the biggest thing. I don't really cut buff the entire horn if I can. I will cut buff certain areas.
Right, that you want extra shine.
Yeah, but I'm not going to just certainly cut buff the entire body itself. But I will cut buff the entire set of keys. I have some here. These have been already kind of color buffed. Let's see if I can get a closer view of this.
Oh, he's doing selfie cam again.
Yeah, selfie cam. Here we go. There it is. So here.
So those keys have been cut and colored?
So these keys have been cut and color buffed. So these are basically ready to wrap up and then send off.
I know we didn't over prepare for this, Ryan, but I want to make sure that you explain what about these keys. Like, what's the life of these keys? They came in, they looked ugly.
Yes.
You did some work to bend them and straighten them, right? And you bent things around the way you needed them to be bent.
Mm-hmm.
And then right before you were about to do key fitting, you cut off.
I cut off, yes. Because the key fitting is you're bringing everything's going to be precise. So you do all your aggressive, maneuvers to the key work, get in there and buff it. If it, flings out of your hand, you're going to straighten it in. You're going to straighten up the key work. So you get your cut buff, you out the finish to start off with, and then you do your key fittings.
Right.
So you do your key fitting, you do your bending, you do your dry fitting, cups, all that stuff. You get your pivot screws, you get your rods, your swage, you do all that. And then at that point, swage down. And at that point, you then go into your final prep.
Okay.
This is kind of the prep, strip and lacquer, refinish. We're doing it in the normal part of the overhaul, and then within the normal part of the key fittings done, we can now, once everything's done, we can then go into where I do the
right before you send it out.
Right before I send it out.
Okay. So it's really integral, and you still haven't done the tone holes, which would have been done a ways back. Like you normally we would do tone holes.
It's usually kind of after key fitting together.
Yeah.
Because
you don't want to do a tone hole before that. You do it after. But still, we haven't done tone holes. But we can put that on because we do tone holes where we do them because everything that could damage them has been done. But now we add this other step of plating, which it won't damage them, but it'll change because plating plates unevenly.
Yes.
The taller parts get a different amount of plating on the tone hole than the shorter parts.
Around the curve, it tends to clump up around, and the ends of tooth.
Right.
Is a big thing.
Right. So we really have done things pretty out of order for this plating job, but also, like we said, we weaved it in, right? So not to talk about it, but that's why we had that idea to do the technician special, right? Do we still have that on the site?
I don't believe so. It's a kind of a special order thing.
So at some point we were like doing horns for people that wanted this work done. They said, can you set up horns for us this way, like other technicians and who aren't necessarily equipped or doing this all the time? And we said, yeah, but the problem is we have to overhaul it too, right?
Yeah.
So what we've done is we do this technician special where we sent it off to get plated, and maybe I should be saying this right now. So it'll be like, can I get that? We don't know how to do that. But then we get it back here, and then we fit the keys again, and then we send it off to the technician, and then they can basically assemble it with a screwdriver, right? And do their work, and so they're not messing with a horn that's been totally messed. Okay, go ahead.
I was going to see if I could share my screen again. Let's show some pictures.
So while he's doing that, the big differences, I know I'm beating this in, but it's really important. And it took a long time to learn this. The big differences are we're cut buffing like right off the bat, and we're color buffing right at the end, and we're doing tone holes like after, right? And so when we're getting the horn back from the plater now, we're not getting the same problems. I mean, and the sandblasting is nothing to sneeze at. I mean, can we talk about that for a minute?
Yeah. Let me go back to stop sharing. We'll share those pictures here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
The media blasting and the sandblasting is the one that it's.
Yeah, we don't use sand.
Actual sand. but it's premium safe. No, that is one of those ones that I have to watch the pressure that I spray that. I also have to watch the media, depending on the weight. We use 2 different medias. We do a medium kind of grit, and then we do kind of a fine grit to kind of fine tune things up. I have to watch when I am actually blasting. You know, if I'm blasting like this, I'm not going to blast straight on with this tone hole. I'm going to kind of angle it and deflect it so I don't do as much damage. But it does. The one thing when we first did the media blasting is, and I told the guys, when you spray and you spray slowly, it keeps that friction of the sand actually hitting the surface, actually creates that friction and actually heats up, and then the brass actually wants to blow. So I have to watch out. I have to really I can't stay in one area too long. And a lot of people think media blast is actually removing nothing. That is not true to a certain extent, assuming you're using the correct kind of media. I think Kurt's out there. He's making a run for it. He's done with this video.
I can't hear you, Ryan. I'm just gonna, while you're talking, I'm just gonna show the sandblaster.
Yeah, he's gonna show the sandblaster and hopefully the buffing room as well. But what's happening with the media is it's actually creating a texture. It's on the microscopic level. If I took a ball peen hammer to a piece of brass and hit it, that's essentially what that media is doing. It's creating a texture on the brass. I'm not actually removing it with sandpaper or filing it away. I'm kind of creating this microscopic dimple or kind of micro stipple look with the media blaster. You can see there, Kurt, that's our sandblaster, our media blaster. We put it in there. It's got everything's contained.
I can't hear you, Ryan, and I'm going to interrupt. Sorry, I don't have a headphone on, but
spray gun.
This is large enough that we can actually hang a base out of here.
We can get a base body.
That's all. There's our sandblaster.
Completely visible. I've done berries in that, big B berries. But that is where we do it. So we did a little bit of experimenting to get the finish, the right type of finish that we want. So, hey, there we are. Let's move on. Oh, no, she's away. But yeah, that's essentially that is probably media blasting is one of those things we have to be very careful of because it can warp the body, move the post around.
Remember we put a flat piece on there? We've done it a bunch, but like we put a flat piece of brass into the sandblaster, and then you sandblast it, and if you go too high a PSI, that flat piece of brass is no longer flat.
Right.
It'll work harder right in the end.
Yeah, somebody asked body work prior to pet buffing. No, we do body work. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, body work and then cut buffing. It kind of depends because I don't really cut buff on the body. So I don't really need to worry about.
That's key. Was that when I was outside? Were you talking?
No.
Because I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, Ryan.
Right.
Okay.
No. But yeah. So I was just answering Neil's question. Yeah. So the cut buffing is mainly for the keys. Okay. I will cut buff certain areas on the body, if it needs it, and then obviously do a color buff. So obviously do a color buff. I'm done.
What about inside the bell?
Yep. Inside the bell is, you can see this one's kind of prepped up, a little bit of a cut buff. We do smooth. And we end up having it gold washed. So if you can see on those, Kurt's holding, the inside of the bell has been prepped up so that we can do a gold wash there. So we really like the silver on the outside and then the gold on the inside. Let's see if I can.
And you're doing that after body work, right? I mean, you're basically doing the body work, then you're cut buffing, right? Because you're not messing up the tone.
Now I'm back to sharing the screen. So I got that Mark 6. So that is what it looked like before, and then you can see kind of what I've shown you, what it looks like after. There's some other. I'm sorry, these are all kind of out of order.
All right, prepare for class.
You can get an idea of here is a Summer Series 3, and you can see this is pretty much the body has been prepped essentially.
And so you obviously cut and color buff under the engraving,
exactly,
but not other stuff.
Yeah. Lacquer was removed on this. I've done probably a real light cut buff to kind of clean up some scratches, and then a color buff to get that kind of that nice shine to it. And then it's been, you can see, re-engraved.
Yeah.
And if we go a little bit further here, it's already been kind of masked off and black. So what happens here is, let me use my little annotation feature. Okay. What happens here is you can see how this area all in here is smooth. When I go and sandblast it, this whole area is covered with masking tape.
The smooth parts.
With here.
Yep.
Yeah. And that's a process, you know, where I have to actually go and outline this whole thing with a Sharpie, cover it in a layer of masking tape. And then I do another layer, outline it again, and then another layer, and then I cut it out. So everything that you see has been covered with 2 layers of masking tape.
So can I just say something about that sandblasting, Ryan? Yes. The sandblasting is a process. It's cool that we do these old horns and that originally there was a very similar finish to this, although they didn't do as good around the engraving as we do. But it's cool that we could take that process and go with it because, or that look and kind of make it our look, because if we had to buff the whole instrument, then we would be getting into that area where we don't know. I mean, how many times can you buff an instrument? You know, you have an old instrument, any of these, I don't care what it's worth. Some of these instruments are not very valuable that are in front of me, but they're beautiful and they play great. So we don't want to ruin them. We don't want to shorten their life so much. And that's an issue with the tone holes. We worry about that. We all worry about that. But with the sandblasting, we haven't taken much metal off. The sandblasting removes a little bit of metal, maybe, but I mean,
very much
years of sandblasting won't have a whole, like the sand isn't like loaded down with brass. In fact, I don't notice any brass in the sand, nothing. But now if you're buffing, you got a buffing wheel, that thing loads up with brass.
Yeah, you look at that buffing wheel after doing some cut buff, there's brass embedded in that buffing wheel. So you are removing, without a doubt, removing metal to do your buffing, whether it's cut or even color buff, which removes that microscopic.
And you have a surface and it has a gouge in it. To get it shiny, you got to get to the bottom of that gouge. Now, if you start with your color buff and you don't want to like damage too much, so you just try to shine it up, what's going to happen is that gouge, which is just a scratch, but you know, magnified in my hands here, is that gouge is going to round and it's just going to kind of turn into a valley. So in reality, the best way to get to the bottom of that and shine it up is to use the most aggressive thing you can use, and then lighten up on how aggressive it is. So you have your gouge, you basically cut it. The best thing you could use if it was deep would be a belt sander.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right. And then so what happens when you have this gouge and then you sandblast, you don't have to remove that gouge at all. You just sandblast, and the sandblasting hides the scratches and puts this texture on there. And there is still something. See that little bit? There's some little bits on there. I mean, here's one. Here, look at this guy. I don't know if you can see this. I can't. It's hard to see on here, but I promise that there's a scratch here. So if you buy this horn, it's not very valuable. There's a scratch up in here, but no one took it out. We just sandblasted, and then no one is even going to notice. You don't need to. Oh, here's some real scratches. See these scratches? These scratches would have to get sanded off. You'd have to use a belt sander, but in this horn, nothing. There was no belt sander. There's nothing, right? So the sandblasting, yes, it's beautiful, but the real point of it is that we don't have to, that we're not buffing. And it's okay to buff. I mean, I'm not saying that you shouldn't buff, and I don't know. Yeah, and yes. And,
perfect. You know, obviously it comes from the factory, but new horn,
it's been buffed. And some horns have been buffed longer than other horns, just based on the factory worker and how they felt, right? So, but we're just not going down that road. So we sandblast, and it doesn't remove the metal. Okay.
Yeah, here you can see I have some of the stuff that I use actually do some of the prepping, like, you know, some of the sanding sticks. I really love these, the bristle discs, you know, just for kind of cleaning things up, you know, different buffs. You know, if I'm doing a cut buff, I'll probably use something like this, like a spiral stone one. If I'm doing a color buff with a lighter, I'll use kind of open stone ones. Different keys, there's your razor's edge buffs. You got a smaller diameter, don't want to get inside of it. I love these guys too, these little small wheels that I'll use with sporting here. You know, any kind of rotary tool you can do with Dremel. These wheels are great for getting in. If you're doing, like I said, we're not doing the whole horn, so I need to get in smaller areas, you know, a key guard, you know, a thumb hook, a belt body brace. These are great right here. You can see the different compounds. You You know, this is my cut off compound, and then Blue Hubble, which
Blue Hubble giveaway. Let's do a Blue Hubble giveaway. We don't have too much longer on this video, but go ahead.
So this is what I use. This is the Hubble that I use for working the color, getting it, things I need.
Time out, Ryan. First person to post a picture of what?
A plated saxophone. Doesn't necessarily have to be yours.
A plated saxophone. If you don't buff, don't win this prize, because this stuff is really, well, one, it's expensive. Two, it's really nice at giving a final finish. The best stuff we found in it. So if you're not buffing, don't win the prize. But if you're buffing and you want to try this, try to win this prize. It could be yours. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, you can see things like for messing off. So this is kind of the area that I do a lot of the prep work.
And go ahead.
So as far as the body's keys, I'll go out.
You're gonna go out there? Will you be able to hear me, Ryan? Probably not. Are you gonna keep talking? All right, I'm gonna be quiet. Just play with this while I'm talking.
And we're back. All right.
Ron,
Yes.
I think we have talked about the process, and I think some of the major differences. Have we got by way of a conclusion? By way of a conclusion, have we talked about?
I think what it is if you do, it's always about making steps forward and never taking a step back.
Right.
That's the big thing about the overhaul is always working on taking a step forward.
Never undo what
Never undo what you've already done. That's why we do certain things at certain times. That's why we love the tone makers and we do. So we don't have to go and undo that work. Same thing with plating. We were able to kind of intersperse that process within the overhaul process and really not undo work. In the beginning, we may have to do undoing some work. But that's until we figured out kind of that seamless, very smooth process.
And I think that process has allowed us to get horns that consistently play good at the end.
And the other thing is it's less good.
Yeah, right.
When you see a horn that's like this, and the person wants it to look, something like this.
Wow.
That's like, how do you do that? I mean, that's a being.
Is that 2 6M?
No,
that's a busher.
I don't know. One that we did. Yeah, it's like how do you do that? How do you accomplish that going from something that looks not good to something that looks, really good?
Because the player had the ugly horn, but they liked the way it played, and they wanted so much that they want to invest money into it. And I'm not going to say invest because you don't get your money back on these things. This isn't what it's about. But like, they want to put their money into something that they're going to have forever, maybe give to their kids. And what they end up with, what they can end up with, is something that they're just constantly disappointed with. Right. And in my opinion, if a horn doesn't play as good as it did before it was plated, it can still be repaired. I mean, there's nothing magical. Right. There's nothing magical. It's just a saxophone. You could go in and now, but you can have a horn that is buffed so much. We have a tenor in here, this balanced action, Bob's tenor. It's had an old reed lacquer and it's a bad job. And I don't think it can ever be redone unless we do it with the process that you just described, because we could take Bob's overhauled bad tenor. Brian, you could do it and you would never buff the body anymore. All we would do is put more plating on it. Right. The only place that would get buffed would be the bell.
And even then, we could just leave it kind of scratchy in the engraving.
We kind of do it.
Maybe just color.
Yeah, just the color buff, it will still have that kind of natural texture.
We call that vintage.
Oh, yeah, that kind of vintage hue look to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wouldn't go glass smooth like you would see in a modern horn.
So then you replate. If we replated that horn that's been really plated a lot, the posts would get a little bit more on them because we wouldn't be over buffing that. Although the posts would get a little more material because we would have the satin. And then say 10 years down the road, if we replated it, it would just get a little thicker.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. So we're taking a horn, I hope, from watching this and see, is we take a horn, we only buff the really little parts. See, Ryan's not buffing this with a big buffing wheel. He's buffing it with those little quarter tools.
Little exact
just like this.
Yep.
Just this. And is it as good? Is it as beautiful? It's close. Mm-hmm. Would it be more beautiful if you buffed the heck out of it? In a way, but who cares? This is beautiful enough, right? To play and be awesome. And it didn't damage the horn, and we can confidently say, yeah, we can redo that. You know, one thing we didn't talk about, Ryan, is the actual work that gets done. Before we go, I think we should talk about that. Like, for instance, if you have a Mark 6 tenor, let's just say it's a normal Mark 6 tenor. It looks a little bit like heck, right? It's been played and it's a guy's horn, but you have some problem with like post. Can I see that body that you've done work on, Ryan? I'd get up and I'm like microphoned in. If you had some problem on a post and you needed to solder the post back on, let's say it was lacquered post and you soldered it on, and the solder flows all around there. But you know, the lacquer around it, you didn't want to damage it. So let's say the post came off because it got bent. You took the dent out. It's pretty good, but it's not exactly perfect. You got it as good as you can. You didn't want to damage the lacquer. You put it on. It's almost perfect. You put the solder in. It works all the way around. It's missing in one little spot. You got to call. Technicians have to know when to call good enough, right? So good enough is going to happen sooner on a horn where you don't want to damage the lacquer. But if you're doing something like this, see, Brian has soldered this thumb rest on, and he's able to all the way around, or this, it's a strap ring, it's not a thumb rest. He's able to get the solder absolutely perfect, because if it's not perfect, he can just redo it. You can just keep going until it's absolutely what you want. So in a way, you can almost do, I think you can do better work. You can do better soldering and body work on a horn that you're replating, or that's no lacquer that you don't care about, right? I mean, if it was just this and we just sent this back to the guy, it would patina and it would be cool, right? And it would have maybe even better solder work than so it takes a little bit of the work off to replace.
Absolutely. Yeah. You don't have to be as careful, but you obviously careful. You don't have to be as careful.
And the not playing good at the end, I think, is because the body was buffed. But this horn is ready to go to the plater, and as you can see, it wasn't buffed. This isn't color. This isn't cut buff. No, this isn't buffed at all. We are only cut buffing the parts that are going to be smooth at the end. We're not cut buffing the body. So this horn is exactly the same. Like those numbers, they're going to be as clear as they were when they came in. Nothing's going to change. We're not going to buff in there. We don't need to make it shiny, because when it's done, it's going to be satin. So some guys will look at a Mark 6 and say, that's not a finish, satin silver. And I get that. And that's a really valid comment. But on the other hand, this finish is not going to damage the horn, and it'll look beautiful. So someone can be really proud of the horn they play. It's their horn. So they get to do what they want with it.
That's the biggest thing that everybody sees that's doing this work. How could you do that? Well, first off,
not everybody. A lot of people love it.
Some people love it, but there are very few. I don't know why. But they're like, oh, you should do that. You're wrong. Well, first off, the customer agreed to this. It's their idea.
Yeah.
And what we're doing is not degrading the structure of the saxophone.
Yeah.
Like I said, we're adding metal to it. So if anything, we're adding metal to it rather than removing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But our horns, especially the refinished ones, play just as good.
I would hope better. I would hope they play better.
I'm going to make this bold statement and say they play better.
Yeah, I mean, and a lot of that's because they have loop pads. I mean, all that is because they have loop pads and all that. I don't know if the silver does anything. We've often theorized that the sandblasting actually work hardens the horn and maybe makes it play better, but you know, no one is going to really know that, and we can argue it, but we all have opinions. But
right.
Okay, Ryan, I think we have clearly described how to. I hope we've clearly described how to get a horn from ugly to beautiful and kind of weave it into the process of your normal overhaul. And I hope that some people got a little bit of benefit from this and can feel more confident when they're at their shop and they're plating. And someone who's already doing it and wants to improve their process.
Come on, folks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do we have any questions, Matt? Or no? Oh, okay. All right, Facebook.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, this is obviously, folks, our first time doing the Zoom, so we're going to have some issues. I don't think I had my mic turned on when I stepped outside in the back there.
Oh, but I was entertaining them.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
No, it's good. It's okay.
Nobody wants to hear me.
Anything you said out there was
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for coming, and happy repairing.
Yes.
All right. I don't know how to stop it.